What is up? This is Alex Rose. Welcome to the vlog. We've got a lot of stuff to do again. I'm going to be working on a bunch of music and showing you that. I have another show. It's a throwback 90s, 2000s show, so I have lots of mashups ready for that. So I'm thinking this week I'm going to show you how to make your own mashups. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to do it using my own music so that I don't get copyright striked, but the principles will apply to whatever you're using. But for now, I'm going to work on some more music, so you'll see that in a bit after I get showered, and we'll go from there. Alright, so now we're going to go through the principles of how to make a mashup, and then afterwards I'm going to show you in FL the steps going through. So the first step is to pick your instrumental. I recommend picking the instrumental first, not the vocal first, as the instrumental is setting the feel for the mashup, and it'll be easier for you to work off of that instead of finding an instrumental that will fit under a vocal. For me, I like to go with artists that I already like, especially in future house where there's no vocal already. Obviously, make sure there's no vocal on the track that you select. The second thing to do is to check the key and the BPM of the instrumental you chose. In order to make it most compatible with modern pop music whose vocals you'll probably want to put on top of it, I recommend choosing a track anywhere between 90 and 130 BPM. However, there is also some modern rap that's up at the 150 trap range. But just keep in mind that this has a big effect on what vocals you can prospectively choose. Step 3 is to find the vocal or a cappella of the pop song or other song that you'd like to use. Most modern pop music is around, like I said, 90 to 120 BPM. And this is really important because you don't want to increase the vocal or decrease the vocal more than 20 BPM. You want to speed up or slow down the BPM of the vocal as little as possible. In fact, it's better to change the BPM of the instrumental than it is of the vocal. Also, keep the instrumental and vocal within 2 semitones of each other, because the separation between the two in key is going to have to be made up in the DAW. So I'll show you how to do that in a bit, but you really can't have the vocal and instrumental in different keys, and moving them more than 2 keys will sound really bad, especially for the vocal. The fourth step is to align the arrangements. So not every song is arranged in the same way, which means that you'll most likely have to change the arrangement of the vocal to fit the instrumental. This just means that, you'll have verses that are of different lengths and things like that. If the verse of the vocal is shorter than the instrumental, you might be able to shorten the instrumental down to fit, but typically you'll have to add parts of the vocal in order to fill out the instrumental. 5 relates to the last step, which is to make a drop vocal. So chances are the chorus of your vocal won't necessarily fit the drop. You can always find some kind of looping phrase or something like that, even make a vocal chop that you can use on top of the drop of the instrumental. Step 6 is to make the intro and outro vocal. Now for this step, all you have to do is, again, take some key moment of the chorus and key phrase or word and loop it over and over again, put it just once every 4 bars or something like that. Step 7 is to add effects, especially for the intro, outros, and the builds of the song. It's best to add a lot of effects. So I'll show you exactly what I mean by this, but typically in builds, you want to add a lot of reverb and delay in order to build the suspense and create a lot of space. Same with the intro and outro, drown the vocal and reverb and it will sound a lot better. Step 8 is EQing and mixing. So basically this step's super easy. All you want to do is cut all the lows off of your vocal so that it's not fighting with the bass at all. There's no artifacts that are really low. Maybe boost the mids a tiny bit and the very highs a little bit as well. And then in the instrumental, you just want to duck the mid, keep the highs basically the same, you don't have to change that, and keep the lows the same. Final step is mastering. Apply your master chain to both the instrumental and vocal going through together. Make sure you've balanced the levels appropriately. Expect to compromise some loudness by adding in the vocal. All right, so those are the steps, and now I'm going to show you an example of applying them in FL with a couple of my own tracks.
All right. So we're here in FL Studio and I've loaded in 2 tracks. So the first one is the complete instrumental for my track Drank, as well as the a cappella for my track The Key. These tracks are both in C, so we shouldn't have to do any key changing. But in the case that we did, the way that you would do that is by going into the sample here, switch the mode to stretch, and then shift the pitch up and down. 2 clicks on your mouse wheel. Once you see it go the bright orange like that, means that it's changed 1 full semitone. The in-between is worthless, so always make sure that it goes to that bright orange. That means you've gone up or down 1 full semitone. The next step was to make sure that they were in the right BPM. I've set the project BPM to 126, which is the BPM of Drank. And then I believe that the vocals for The Key are at 130. So the next step is to align the arrangements. So we're going to take some quick pass-throughs. My first instinct is that I know this is all the intro of Drank. So I'm just going to slide these over like this. That way the vocal of The Key starts with the instrumental. So we can see already that there's a misalignment in terms of the arrangement between Drank and The Key. We have to decide now what we want to prioritize. So for myself, I know that the build of The Key, which is this segment here, I want to overlap with the build of Drank so that it hits this vocal at the very end, right in the pre-drop, because I think that will sound nice. And then we'll just drag out and see how much of the verse we can save. Okay, so what I did was I messed around with the instrumental just a tiny bit for Drank. I shortened the kind of trap breakdown section a bit. And then I put some of Core's vocals from the first verse in here and kept all of mine. And it's all aligned just like the first point, so that it ends on here. The only other major arrangement change I'm going to make is by cutting out the second half of the drop. Now that I'm done that step, I'm just going to try and identify things that I can use for the drop, intro, and the outro. Most likely what I'm going to pick is just this little phrase of us saying, "You've got the key right here." So very simple. I just spaced it out and it sounds fine. And we'll continue that into the intro and outro. All right, so we have our intros and outros set with just the key coming in every once in a while. Next, we're going to add some effects. So this vocals already has quite a lot of effects on it already. So we don't need to put any more in terms of reverb and stuff. So it's on 1 here. We're just going to turn down the levels on both of these. And all we're going to do is put on an EQ that basically high passes it during the build so that there's a little bit more tension. So while we have the build selected, what we're going to do is go into an EQ and make a high pass that we should be putting on for our EQing phase anyways, and then just automate the high pass through the build, just a tiny little bit, like that much. The other effects that we're going to add are just reverb for the intro and outro. So the way that we do that is we put a reverb on, put really high wet, about mid, dry, room size up, low cut a tiny bit, and then we throw the percentage of the automation all the way to 0. Now we're going to create an automation clip throughout the song, and this will be saying like how much of that reverb effect do you want mixed in with the dry effect. So for the purposes of the intro and outro, we want it to be like 100%. Sounds really spacey, which is what we want. Add some contrast between the actual song and the intros and outros. So just to go to the EQing step now. On the vocal, we're just going to do a really quick low cut or high pass. You can put it around 100, depending on how severe you make it. I like to go up to 120. We're going to boost the mids just a little, low mids like this, and the very highs like that. Okay, so now for the final mix, now that we have kind of the arrangement all done, the first thing I'm going to do is just put on my master chain so that I can hear the whole mix more loudly. That way I can better adjust the actual levels of the 2 tracks. So because this isn't a tutorial on how to mix and master, I'm not going to show you how to make a master chain, but just apply your regular one to the master of both the tracks combined. All right, so I got to about -5 dB loudness, which is exactly what I wanted. I got the levels right on the vocal versus the instrumental. Sounds like this.
Don't know what you do to me. I haven't seen an inch of sleep. In reality, I haven't seen my friends and we. I'm off the pure mountain dew. Locked in a box, you got the key. The key. The key. The key. Locked in a box, you got the key.
So I hope that helps you actually make a mashup in the future. Obviously, I had to use my own tracks for copyright reasons, but it applies to everyone's track. The biggest thing is making sure that the key and the BPM are synced. A huge mistake is people will mash up songs in different BPMs, and it sounds really bad. There's a bunch of websites that you can find that will tell you the keys and BPMs of popular songs. I recommend going through about 6 and taking the majority, as they can be different and inconsistent. And then from there, try to trust your ear. If really it still sounds wrong, go into your piano roll and just start hitting notes and hearing if they're in the melody of the song. And then you know that that's in the key, and you should have at most 8 notes, and that will tell you the key that you're in. As always, I hope that you were able to learn something new from this video. And if you enjoyed it, please do like, comment, and subscribe for future videos. I have weekly vlogs, tutorials coming out. Thank you so much. And as promised, here's some footage of that show.